Welcome to our webinar today. This is a healing demo and a Q&A called Boost Your Body Code Results. This topic is on surrogate and proxy testing, which is a very, very important part of this work. So this is me, Dr. Bradley Nelson. I've been a holistic physician now since 1988, specifically a holistic chiropractic physician, practiced for 17 years in a brick and mortar practice, and then about 2.5 years in a remote practice. We're going to be talking about that today, proxy work and how to do that at a distance. I'm a master energy healer, you could say. I'm creator of the body code system and, of course, the author of the emotion code, and you all know that. So let's look at some questions and answers now. First question that came in is about surrogate versus proxy. And the question is, what is the difference between proxy and surrogate work? Well, when you are acting, when you're using a surrogate, okay, or you are you're using the principle of surrogate work to work on somebody, we use surrogate work and surrogate testing when somebody is within 6 feet of our energy field, when we're within basically 6 feet or so of them, because the human body has an energy field that extends out around us about 12 feet in diameter. And that's where it's strongest. So about 6 feet from the center of every person, that's where their energy field is strongest. So if you're within that energy field, you can use surrogate work. And I think we're going to be explaining a little more later about exactly how that works. All right. So first of all, before we continue with this, I just want to say how happy I am to be here with all of you today. I don't get to do too many of these webinars like this anymore. I have just so much going on, so it's fun for me to be here with all of you. So with proxy work, on the other hand, your subconscious mind sets aside its own needs to act on behalf of someone else, and that can be at any distance, anywhere, okay? People can be literally on the other side of the planet. And so that's the difference. We use proxy work typically when somebody is in another state or in another country or on the other side of the planet. But generally speaking, if you're further than 6 feet away from somebody, it works best, we have found, to use proxy work. So hopefully that helps that one. And again, if you're 6 feet, if you're within 6 feet of somebody, you'd use surrogate testing. Otherwise, use proxy testing. So what's an easy way to explain proxy work to my friends and clients? Well, I would tell them the following. If you look out at the ocean, and you're looking at some islands off the coast, they look like they're separate islands. But if you were to drain all the water out of the ocean, you would see that those islands are really all connected. And in that same way, we are all connected to each other. And we're connected via quantum physics, really, and through energy. And so proxy work, the way I explain it is that the human being has this amazing ability that's been built right into us all along to set aside. We have this ability to set aside our own needs to act on behalf of someone else and serve someone else. And that's how proxy work, that's how it works. That's the basic principle of it. And really, truly, it's all about quantum physics. And the more you learn about quantum physics, the more you understand how this is possible and how it can be. That's what I tell people. And then I just proceed. So here's a question. Can we use tools like pendulums to do surrogate or proxy testing? And the answer is yes, absolutely, you can. Pendulums, or really any form of dowsing tool, can be used. So that's a great question. I guess I won't get into more detail on that, but basically, actually, let me go back to that one for just a minute. Basically, what any kind of dowsing device, like, for example, L-rods or bobbers or pendulums, all they're really doing, they're very, very sensitive devices, and all they're doing is they're picking up the subtle change that is taking place in the body. That's all they're doing. The answers are not coming from the pendulum itself. In other words, it's not that the pendulum is intelligent somehow itself. All it's just a tool to manifest the change that's going on in your own body, okay? So with a pendulum, for example, you can establish a yes or no. There's more information about this in the book. In fact, we talk about pendulums and how to use them in the new book that's coming out. So I don't think I'll go into detail on that. But basically, if you're using a pendulum, you can get a yes and a no and a neutral, and it may swing a certain way for yes and a certain way for no, and it kind of just depends. It's different for different people, and you can reprogram your own mind to give you answers that match your friends if you want to. But that's kind of how that works. And so, yes, they all do work. The thing to keep in mind, though, and the thing that I would really mention and bring back to you is that is really the importance of connecting with that higher power. And before you do this work, if you believe in a higher power, which I think probably most of you do, it's important, whatever you believe, to take a moment before you do your session to actually make that connection, because that's really where that's really where the power, I believe, comes from. So here's one. Do I need to be talking to someone on the phone in order to do proxy work for them? No, you do not, but you do need to have their permission. What I found when I was doing my remote practice is that I would do some sessions on email, and I would do some sessions that were live and in person. And for me, I found that I preferred doing the sessions over Skype or on the phone with people, but some people are just too busy, and so that's okay. You can also do email sessions and it works fine. The only key there is you do have to have permission, okay? Here's one, proxy while alone. Can I do proxy work for someone while I am alone? In other words, can I be both the proxy and the tester at the same time? Absolutely, and I'm going to show you how we do that on video here. I'll work with someone, maybe one or two people, depending on how much time we have, and I'll show you how this is actually done. Okay, but the short answer there is absolutely yes, and that's what our practitioners are doing all over the world. I think very few of them are using another person to act as a proxy. So, although you definitely can do that too. So I'll show you that in a few minutes. Connecting up. How do I create a connection with my subject in order to act as proxy for them? Well, I'm going to show you that as well. For me, when I offer that prayer and I ask for that help from up above, that is when the connection for me seems to get made. And when I'm done with that, I'll just ask if I now am connected as proxy, and I always am. Okay, so I'll also show you that as we work on somebody here. If I am working with a partner, how would I help them to create that proxy connection with the subject? Okay, well, here's how this works. Let's say that I am working with my wife, Jean, and I'm going to have her act as proxy for someone else, maybe one of our kids somewhere. I would have her hold out her arm, and I would then have her say the name, that her name is the name of that other person. So she might say, my name is Lizzie. And at first, when I press down on her arm to get a response, it will probably be weak because that connection has not yet been made. So in the beginning, that's an incongruent statement. If she says, my name is Lizzie, and her name really is Jean, she's going to be weak. But if she says that a few times, and I keep muscle testing her, at a certain point, the connection gets made, her subconscious sets aside its own needs to act then on behalf of, in this case, Lizzie. And so all of a sudden, when Jean says, my name is Lizzie, suddenly she's going to be strong. And so that's how that proxy connection gets made if you're working with a partner, okay? And then you just want to remember to disconnect that person by having them say their name is their name until it is strong. So for example, if I'm sitting here with Jean, to continue this example, when we're done working with, in this case, Lizzie, Jean then would say, my name is Jean, and she might be weak initially because she's still connected to Lizzie. She's set aside her own needs to act on Lizzie's behalf. But if she continues to say, my name is Jean, then all of a sudden it's going to go strong for her. And then if you have her say, my name is Lizzie, in this case, she would be weak. So that's how that's done. Pretty straightforward. Here's one, proxy for a child. Can I be a proxy for my client's child over the phone if the child is not present, but the mother okays it? Absolutely. And that's one of the really amazing things about this work is that this connection that gets made with proxy testing is so complete and so powerful and so absolute that it doesn't matter what that person is doing. They could be flying on the other side of the planet in a jet going 500 miles an hour at 50, maybe 45,000 feet or something over the Pacific or somewhere, and you can still work on them and get instantaneous and immediate results. It's kind of astonishing, really, but the answer to that one is definitely yes. So the best way to do that, well, again, I'm going to show you. Okay, and I think that will answer those questions. So here's one, the right subject. How can I make sure I am connected to the right person? I'm doing sessions remotely and the person is not on a call with me. I use a photo, name, and date of birth. Is that enough to ensure I'm connected to the right person? Well, oddly enough, I have never used a photo. I've never actually used a date of birth. I've never really worried about this, and I've never had a problem. I've always been connected to the right person. All I've ever used is just a name. Now, if you want to use a photo and date of birth, that's totally fine, but you don't really need to. If your intention is to connect to a particular person, like maybe the person's name is John Doe, and there's a lot of them, it doesn't matter because your subconscious mind knows this particular person that you're trying to connect to, and you don't worry about it. You just let it connect, and it's always worked for me, and I think for everybody else that we've been working with and teaching over all these years. It's all about trusting the intelligence of the subconscious mind, and trusting the universal database to the database of universal intelligence, really, or whatever you want to call that. The database of all that is, the intelligence that fills the universe, the light of Christ. It depends on who you're talking to. It goes by different names, but it's the same thing, really. Rupert Sheldrake calls it the morphic field. It's that intelligence that fills the universe. Now, if you're working with an animal, for example, how do you connect to the right animal? Let's say that you're looking at a herd of deer, and you can see that there's a deer that is limping, and you're trying to connect with that particular deer. How would you do that? Well, it's actually really simple. It's just all done mentally. You don't need to talk to the deer. I mean, you wouldn't even want to probably get close to a deer herd. They wouldn't let you get close, but it's possible. Sometimes when you're working with animals, you don't want to get too close. So you can just ask, am I connected to you? And your intention is that particular animal. So I have found that it's best to not overthink this, okay? Your subconscious mind knows full well how to do this. All you have to do is just trust it because you are along for the ride, okay? So here's one, what if more info is needed? Now, sometimes we need more information about an imbalance in order to release it, but how can I deal with this if I am not talking to my client on the phone or otherwise? Well, sometimes this happens. For me, in my own remote practice, when I was working with people via email, this was pretty rare, but it can happen. So if it happens, really what it means is that the subconscious mind of the person you're working with really is not going to allow this to be released, whatever it is, until there's more information brought to conscious awareness. So in this case, what you can do is you can set this particular thing aside. Let's say you're doing an email session on somebody, and the third thing that you find is maybe a trapped emotion. And when you ask, do we need to know more? It says yes, and you're doing an email session, and maybe it's the middle of the night where they are. It's okay. What you do, you just basically say, okay, this one we can't solve right now, so we'll solve it next time. So you can make a note about that, saying, I tried to release this, but needed more information. I'll pick this one up, we'll pick this up next time. But there are some things that you can get, okay? For example, you can test to see how old the person was when this happened. Usually that's all you'll need to know. If, let's say, for example, you're working with someone and you find out that this occurred at age 30, this trapped emotion, we'll say, and you need to know more, you can ask, well, okay, did this occur? Was this an emotion that was absorbed from somebody else? And you might be able to get that answer. Well, yes, actually, this was. Oftentimes, that will be all that you need to know. But if you do have to go deeper and the subconscious mind is just not willing to take you any deeper, then what you can do is you can let them know what you found. Well, I found out that this was from age 30. It was an emotion that you absorbed from somebody. You absorbed it apparently from a male. There's a lot you can find out without even needing to be connected on the phone with the person. You could find out if it's a family member, if it was dad, if it was a brother, if somebody from school. But in the rare event that you have to go to a place where you really have to talk to them about it, just make some notes and let them know, hey, this is as far as I could take this. What do you know about this? Is there anything else you can tell me? So anyway, it's pretty rare that you'd need to do that with somebody. In fact, I think in the 2.5 years that I was doing remote sessions, I don't think in fact, I know I didn't ever have to do that. But sometimes I did need more info, but I was always able to basically just figure it out from general questions like that. Proxy wears me out. Okay, when I do proxy work on a client, in some cases I become rather tired. Is it possible that I get tired because I am simultaneously releasing my own trapped emotions while I'm working on them? So I have started processing, or am I absorbing their negative energies, perhaps? Well, of course, you could ask about this and see, okay? Because the subconscious mind will know which of those options might be going on. And those are both possible. When you're working with somebody and you release a particular trapped emotion, it's possible that that same emotional energy could be released from you. I think that this is maybe one of the reasons why when we work with other people doing this type of work that we end up helping ourselves and feeling better ourselves. It's also possible that you might be absorbing some negative energies from them. But what you can do, again, is you can ask which of these possibilities might be going on, and maybe there's something else going on. However, I will tell you that this work is, it does take energy to do this. And they say that the hardest work that human beings do is thinking. And that's why so few people do it. I always like that quote. So for me, for example, in my own remote practice, I worked 3 days a week from 8 a.m. to noon. And when I was done at noon on those working days, I was done. I didn't want to do anything else. I was tired. I was kind of worn out. Make sure that you're shielded too when you're going in and you're working with somebody. But you can also always ask, use the body code, and you can ask, is there a reason why I'm getting so overly tired when I'm doing these sessions? And you might find some kind of imbalance going on that you can release. Clarification. Okay, I have noticed that Dr. Brad will switch back and forth between testing his volunteer's arm to then using self-testing on his own body in order to find imbalances on the volunteer subject. How can you do this back and forth so quickly? Would this be considered surrogate or proxy testing? Oh, okay. Well, so yes, for example, I was doing an event recently and I had a person up in the front, and I started off asking questions and getting answers on their body. And then I could feel that they were starting to get a little bit worn out. So I continued asking them questions, but I was getting the answers on my own body. Okay, so in other words, I would ask a question and then I would test myself using one of the self-testing methods. And that's called surrogate testing without using an extra person. So instead of having 3 people, it was just me and that other person. What I found when I was in practice is that when I was talking to a patient, to their subconscious mind, basically asking questions, their body was always responding. Yes answers were always strong on their body. No answers were always weak on their body. But what I found was, if I asked a question and their body was strong, if I muscle tested myself using self-testing, I would be strong when they were strong. But I would also be weak when they were weak. And so we call that surrogate testing. This is a great way for you to be able to, for example, work on an animal. If you get within about 6 feet or so of an animal, your energy field extends out about 6 feet in diameter, or 6 feet from the center of your core, 12 feet in diameter. So if you're within about 6 feet of an animal, you should be able to just talk to them and get the answers on yourself, okay? Strong for yes, weak for no on your own body. So as far as going back and forth, generally speaking now, when I work on people, which is not that common, if I'm working with somebody and I'm with them live and in person, I will always do at least 2 or 3 muscle tests on their outstretched arm so that they can feel what's going on, okay? The beautiful thing about the self-testing is that it's fast, it's simple, it's easy, and it's more, well, I don't know that it's more accurate, but it's just more efficient because you're taking the other person out of the equation in as far as the testing goes. You're testing on your own body and you're used to that, and it's easier to get those answers. But I will test another person if I'm sitting there with somebody and let's say that I find something that I want to show them. I can say, okay, look, here's what I'm finding. Let's just verify this on you. Hold out your arm, okay, I'm finding that you have this trapped emotion of blah, 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 and it's from such and such age. And is that true? And then I'll test their body and they'll be strong. And then maybe once it's released, I just like to show that to people. And that's mainly what I use the arm tests for now. I'll just show people what I'm finding. So it's good to know how to do that, but it's not the most efficient way to really get answers. It's way more efficient to use self-testing and just ask questions and get those answers. And remember, you can ask those questions silently as well. Although that, if you're working with somebody live and in person and you're sitting there and you're just kind of looking at them and your fingers are going back and forth, it can seem kind of strange. And so to answer this question, that would be considered surrogate testing. Okay. Proxy testing is where you say, okay, my name is Bob, or my name is Jim, my name is Jim, my name is Jim, and it finally tests strong for you because you're making that wireless connection. Okay, when I'm doing surrogate testing, do I need to connect up with the subject so I am testing for them, quote unquote? And the answer there is, well, the answer is no. This question is a little bit curious. Let me just say this, okay? Let's say, for example, we have, we'll make it fun. Let's say we have an elephant, okay, that we want to work on. If the elephant is in our living room, okay, I can just walk over, and if I'm within about 6 feet of the elephant, I can ask questions. I can just direct questions to the elephant. So, do you have a trapped emotion, Mr. Elephant, that we can release today? And the answer is going to manifest on my body as strength for yes or weakness for no. Now that's surrogate testing, and I'm doing that by myself. If I have another person there, they could reach out and they wouldn't have to touch the elephant, but they could. And I could muscle test them. I could ask the questions, direct my questions to the elephant. And if I'm using another person as the surrogate, their arm would stay strong for yes or weak for no. Okay. But you don't have to do any kind of elaborate connecting at all. If you're within their energy field and you're asking questions, those answers are going to manifest in their field. So their energy field is going to be fluctuating, and you're going to be able to pick up whether it's manifesting a yes or a no, either on your own body or on the body of the surrogate person whose arm you're testing. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, on the other hand, if the elephant is in Thailand, which is where the elephant is from in this case, in that case, if I'm working with another person and they're going to act as proxy for the elephant, let's say that we know that the elephant's name is Tingwa. That person would say, my name is Tingwa, my name is Tingwa, until they tested strong. And then at that point, we're going to be talking directly to that elephant's subconscious mind. It doesn't matter where they are on the planet. And then on the other hand, if I'm acting as a proxy person for that animal or that person myself, and I don't have an extra person that's going to help me here, then I can do it totally by myself. And I would just say, okay, my name is Tingwa, my name is Tingwa myself, and muscle test those answers until they're strong. And at that point, I've made that connection. Okay. And so basically the way to think of surrogate testing, if you think about kids that grow up on a farm that has an electrical cattle fence, eventually those kids all seem to find out that if they touch the fence, they get shocked. But if they grab a hold of the fence and they're feeling the shock going through them, if they then grab another person, they don't feel the shock anymore. The other person now is feeling the shock. And so then that person suddenly is going to be desperate to find someone else to grab onto. And so they'll grab another kid. And so typically, kids that grow up on farms learn this, that you can do this kind of thing. And usually they'll get a chain of kids there, and the smallest cousin is always the one on the very end of the line. And that smallest cousin is always the one feeling the shock, desperate to grab onto somebody else. But basically, there's no harm that's done by this to anybody. But the reason I tell you this is because when you're doing surrogate testing, you can think of it that way. It's the electrical field, the energy field, that change is just passing. It's within their vicinity, and so you'll be able to pick that up, and that energy change will go through your body, and you can pick those up as either strong for yes or weak for no on your own testing, or if you have another person there, you can test through them and they can be the surrogate. That's fine. We used to only always have another person to do the testing with until we figured out and realized how to do the self-testing. And is there something special that you need to do in order to make sure that you're testing for them? Well, no, in surrogate testing, they're going to be right there. They're going to be within 6 feet. So just ask them, is it okay if we do this? And there's nothing else special that you need to do. No. Here we go. Surrogate while working alone. Can I act as both the surrogate and the tester at the same time? Yes, absolutely. And I think I've already explained that. Again, in the animal example, I could walk up, and if I'm within 6 feet of the animal or the person, I can just say, I can just ask questions, direct those questions to the subconscious mind of the animal, and just talk to the animal. I'll either get a yes or a no. Okay. So yes, you definitely can act as both surrogate and tester at the same time. Who to clear from? If I am acting as surrogate for somebody, would I release the imbalances on my own body or theirs? I assume theirs, but what if I cannot touch them for some reason? Okay, this is a great question. A great example of this was when my father had an aneurysm a number of years ago and was in the hospital, and we couldn't really touch him because he was surrounded by all of these tubes and wires, and he was in a hospital bed, but we were able to release those imbalances from him. Actually, I had my wife there, and so she was able to reach through and just touch his hand. Not that she needed to, but that's what she did. And then I was able to talk to my father, even though he's in a coma, and I was able to get answers, and the answers would manifest on her body as either strength for yes, coming from his subconscious mind, or her arm would weaken for a no answer coming from his subconscious mind. So as far as releasing imbalances, in that case, we released the imbalances on my wife acting as the surrogate. So if you can't get at the person, even though you're acting as surrogate and they're close to you, yes. If you can't touch them, you can go ahead and release those imbalances on the surrogate person. And if you're acting as the surrogate person, you can release those imbalances on yourself acting as the surrogate. So pretty easy. Touching the subject. Is it best to touch the subject when I'm using surrogate testing for them? Is it ever problematic to do so? Well, it doesn't really matter. You do not have to touch the subject. If you're within 6 feet or so of them, the answers that you're getting, strong for yes, weak for no, are going to come through whether you're touching them or not. Is it ever problematic to do so? Well, I suppose there could be cases where it's best not to actually touch the person. Let's say, for example, you've got a jaguar in a cage and the jaguar is upset. Well, it's probably best to not stick your finger through the cage to touch the subject, right? But you don't need to. You can get within 6 feet of that animal and you can ask questions and you'll get those answers with no problem. Excuse me. If the animal, if you're working on a wild animal and it's real, like in this case, you might even want to get further than 6 feet away and then just use proxy testing. Okay, and there could be other cases where it might be problematic to touch a subject. Let's say that you're trying to help a person who has some kind of contagious skin disease, maybe. I don't know. You might not want to touch them, and you don't need to. Okay. Untestable. Occasionally, my subject has become untestable due to an imbalance surfacing, causing me to have trouble testing them directly as well as on my own body with self-testing. I have resolved this by backing away from them a foot or two, I suppose away from the negative energy of the imbalance. Is this a good solution in your experience? Well, yeah, I don't know why not. I mean, if that's working, if that seems to work for you, then sure. What I have found is that if someone becomes untestable because there's some kind of imbalance that's coming up, usually if you'll give it maybe 30 seconds or so, you'll usually be able to come back and finish the testing. Sometimes it's just that their computer system gets overwhelmed by what's going on and it needs a minute to process. But you can also try this, so not a bad idea. Okay, we did have another question that came in. Oops. Well, let's see here. Is there a reason why you wouldn't always choose to be proxy? So let's see. I don't know that I can think of a good reason for this. Although if let's say, for example, I'm feeling sick, maybe I'm just feeling like my energy level is really, really low. I might want to postpone that until I'm feeling better. Let's say that, let's say that I'm going to be using my wife as proxy for somebody else. If she's not feeling well, or maybe she's got some kind of a shoulder problem or something going on, then she probably would choose to maybe not do that. Other than that, I don't think I can really think of a good reason. Anyway, good question.